This is an overview of the midterm study guide for the first midterm, so let's get started. There are 4 questions, one from each chapter, and because you have access to your text, you have access to your notes, and because I gave you the study guide, I do expect to have more substantive answers than when people are sitting in a classroom taking the test. What I mean by that is I expect that you'll have more depth in your answers. You'll have more thoughtful answers because you've had a whole week to think about them if you wait until the end of the week. Okay, so having said that, here we go. Number 1, explain the difference between crime and deviance. There's a good discussion in the text about how crime and deviance are different. Crime, of course, is anything that violates a law. Deviance is more based on social norms, what broadly we all agree are norms that we should adhere to. So you want to make sure you discuss that difference. And also, I ask you to explain why crime is easier to define. Remember that not everyone agrees on what deviant behaviors are. Some people would say polyamorous relationships are deviant, whereas people in those relationships would likely say, no, they're not. Also think about how deviance changes over time from place to place. Being married to more than one person in the U.S., illegal. In Muslim nation states, man can be married up to 4 women at one time. It's encouraged. Caveat, of course, is that he's supposed to treat them all the same. So put some thought into that. Analyze the 3 different views of crime: consensus, conflict, and interactionist, and discuss which view you believe is the better way to study crime. So after you've discussed those 3 views, which one do you think is a better way to study crime? Most researchers study crime from one of those views, and if you were a researcher, think about which one you would prefer to use and why. Based on the discussion on page 23 of the text regarding a hate crime in Georgia, do you agree or disagree with the way the case was solved? Lay out the case, and of course some of the, I don't know if I should say controversy, but some of the disagreement about what the result was, how it was resolved, in terms of how much time was given to the people involved. And so what do you think? Was it handled the right way? Would you have given more time, less time? What do you think? And then last, should all hate crimes be punished more severely than other crimes, regardless of the circumstances? Why or why not? Federal law, tax on an additional 5 years. California state law, tax on an additional 5 years if it's a California state hate crime. But some people argue that circumstances should be taken into account, maybe depending upon the age or, as I said, the circumstances of the hate crime. Maybe whether the person is genuinely sorry, all of those kinds of things. But other people say, nope, should be tacked on 5 years, no matter what. So what do you think, and why do you think that? Question number 2 is asking you to discuss the differences between the 4 major data collection methods. Those are on page 39, and of course they're the UCR, Uniform Crime Report, the NIBRS, the National Incident-Based Reporting System, the National Crime Victimization Survey, and self-reporting. Which method, after you've explained the differences, which method do you think yields the best data and why? You may think it's more than one method or only one. Explain why. Based on the discussion on pages 42 to 43, explain the trends that have been documented internationally regarding crime. Those are at the first part of the article on page 42. European countries tend to use less harsh punishment than the U.S. In your opinion, should the U.S. be more like European countries or vice versa? So, should the U.S. be more like Europe and use less harsh punishment? Or should maybe the European countries be like the U.S. and use more harsh punishment? What do you think? Why? Finally, based on the information on page 47 of the text, does the research tend to support the idea that immigrants are more likely to commit crime? We often hear from politicians that immigrants, famously, as was said by former President Donald Trump when he was running for office in 2016, that Mexican immigrants were druggists, rapists, and murderers. Does research tend to support what he said or not? What do you think? Again, based on the information on page 47. Question number 3 is from chapter 3. Choose 2 of the 4 theories of victimization. And I tell you where those are, pages 78 through 74. Those are victim precipitation, lifestyle theory, deviant place theory, and routine activities theory. Choose two of those theories. Explain the ideas of each of those two theories in detail. You might want to give some examples of how these theories explain crime. And then analyze which of the four theories best explains who is more likely to experience intimate partner violence. So when we think about intimate partner violence, think about which of those four theories best explains or predicts who's more likely to experience it. And then tell me how you reached your conclusion. Explain it fully. In your opinion, are victim impact statements a good idea or not? They weren't always allowed, but they have been in most states within the last 30 to 35 years. Some people think they're a good idea, some people don't. There's a discussion in the text. What do you think? And then I ask you, do you think there might be a bias against the defendant that results when victim impact statements are heard? Is this a problem? Why or why not? In your view, of course. And then last chapter, question 4 from chapter 4, choose two of the four choice theories. And then if I give you the pages again there, and if they're rational choice, general deterrence, specific deterrence, and incapacitation. So whichever two you choose, explain the ideas of those two theories, and then which theory of the four, which theory do you think makes the best argument for how to reduce street crimes and why? Specifically focusing on street crimes. Forget about white-collar crimes. We're focusing here on street crimes. Based on the information on pages 116 to 117, make an argument for either abolishing or retaining the death penalty in California. This was up for voters on the November 2018 ballot. There was a ballot initiative that, if passed by the voters, would have abolished the death penalty in California. It did not pass. There's always talk of trying to abolish it in California. We have over you have, because I don't live there anymore, you have over 700 people on death row in California, and the last time you put anyone to death, the state put anyone to death, was 2006. So what do you think? And remember, don't just say, I think it's a good idea, I think it's a bad idea. Explain why. Think about the information that's in that article on pages 116 to 117, and if you disagree with what's said, explain why. Okay. So that's it. I hope that this is helpful to you as you prepare for the midterm.